It's time. It's episode 75 of the ATM podcast. Apologise to me, Martin Devlin from the platform. Mark Watson, a broadcaster of much international acclaim. We want to talk about Forest getting deducted 4 points and how many are Man City going to get deducted. How many titles should they lose for their 115 charges? Super Rugby, the Crusaders going to bounce back. The Warriors blew that game. I don't see how else you could look at those last 3 minutes. Did the new A-League side really organise a pitch invader at the Knicks? And the way that this has been reported, 18,000 for that crowd was sellout. The Blues versus Crusaders. We're going to be eagerly anticipating what kind of walk-up attendance turns up to that game. The Poa don't do a haka, and everyone's ducking for cover over that.
Apologise to me!
We got lots to talk about, but kick it off with Nottingham Forest, Mark, because Everton got deducted. They got given a few points back. Forest got it now. But surely, when the Premier League has charged Manchester City with 115 separate violations and offences, and Forest and Everton between them had 4. So what does this mean? I know that we know what the outcome is. It is going to be stalled in the courts. There are going to be lawyers involved. It'll go to the CAS, and they'll end up throwing it out on appeal or whatever it is. We all know the ultimate outcome. But really, it does put the Premier League now under a hell of a lot of pressure, doesn't it?
Oh, look, it does. Pretty ruthless. I mean, both Everton and Forest now, suddenly Forest are in the relegation zone, and we know what that can mean for a club in terms of financial position of the club going forward. And same with Everton. 10 points reduced to 6, and they've managed to fight their way still back out of the relegation zone. But yeah, I sit there as a Liverpool fan. I imagine Arsenal fans around the country. I mean, look, we're a great side, but we've been playing in an era with this, almost invincible Manchester City side. And as I've said previously, society only functions if it's a level playing field in regards to a judicial system, that the law is fair and equal to all. And that happens at a micro level too. And, as a Liverpool fan, I'm just sitting here going, well, okay, when are the 30 points going to be deducted from Manchester City? When are they going to get relegated? When are they going to be put to the bottom of the league for their financial indiscretions? Because certainly the perception I have is that, clearly the bigger you are, the mightier you are, the bigger your budget, the more political power you've got. Clearly the law is not equal. And I find that incredibly frustrating. I was just saying to Lachlan, actually, prior to talking with you, Martin, I mean, what are they going to do? Somehow move this to next year, but retrospectively, the season's going to sit. I'll say this: Manchester City are going to win everything again. They're going to win the Champions League. They're going to win the FA Cup, and they're going to win the Premier League. And you do just sit there and ask yourself, how in this environment can a club be so dominant and pretend to have done it sort of squeaky clean under the financial regulations that have been put in place? So, yeah, incredibly frustrated. I'd be absolutely gutted if I'm a Forest fan, an Everton fan, a Liverpool fan, or any other fan of any other club. It's just not good enough, and they need to operate, or they at least need to put out a reason for why this is being stalled, for why somehow Manchester City.
Well, look, what they've done in the Premier League is
different to Everton and
Forest. Well, they actually came out and they said, we've got a date, but they just won't tell us what that date is. And, the longer they stall, the longer they duck and dive, the more subterfuge, it only makes everyone think, okay, so what are you lining up here? You're lining up the fancy pants law firms who are the most expensive, and because your lawyers are better than the Premier Leagues and you've got a unlimited budget to spend, you just know that this is never going to be resolved within the next few seasons. Mate, I want to see those titles taken off them, because if they are guilty, that's the only punishment. Kick them out of Europe for a couple of years and then see how many players stay. And then, and the shame of actually having an asterisk beside that title. Look, it's done. That's been done before. It was done to the Melbourne Storm, rightfully. Canterbury Bulldogs had 30 points or 28 points deducted. Juventus have had titles taken off them. That doesn't mean that they get awarded to the next team, because I don't agree with that. But I like the idea of putting a line through it and an asterisk saying, well, that season they won the title, but they don't get given it anymore. That is a huge punishment.
Apologise to me!
The Crusaders are 0-4. Should we all be celebrating this? I say hell yes, because this team is like the Aussie cricketers, mate. Keep them down as long as you can, because you know they're bouncing back.
Yeah, I heard the comments from Justin yesterday that you don't want to be that team that finishes first and second, and suddenly the Crusaders finish 7th or 8th, and you find you're playing them in a playoff, and they've suddenly found their mojo and they've come right. I'm not convinced they will come right. I just think they've lost too many marquee players. I'm not a big believer in Rob Penny. I mean, he'd lost it's now 7 consecutive games for him at a Super Rugby level that he's lost, if you include the last 3 games with the Waratahs as well. Where we should be concerned is when it comes to All Black time, in regards to the fact that the Crusaders no longer possibly are providing New Zealand the depth that we've relied on so heavily. Look, I did a show myself with Justin on Sunday, and we had a really interesting text that came in saying that, you know, part of the problem is that Scott Robertson didn't build any sort of succession planning. And Justin actually came up with a really good point and said, well, look, that's not the case. The problem is that he brought a lot of young guys through, but they came up to speed so quickly that they suddenly were bolstered and, you know, put into All Black contention pretty quickly. And then post that, there've been, you know, big demand for them. Lester Whanganuku, a really good example of a young guy who, you know, did incredibly well in a short period of time, made the All Blacks, now's taking a big contract in France. But look, it is a concern. I mean, you look at the Blues type 5, they're just still woeful. You look at the Highlanders, you know, the Hurricanes are holding the fort at the moment along with the Chiefs. You know, are the All Blacks now relying on 2 Super Rugby teams to become a powerhouse again? So look at a Super Rugby level, yeah, as a Blues fan, I don't really give a damn about the Crusaders. At a bigger picture level, I think we should all be concerned. But look, I think people should be asking the questions of Rob Penny. For so long, the Crusaders have been very insular. You need to be a Cantabrian, you need to be a Crusader to pretty much take over this team. But like the All Blacks, you need to be a New Zealander, and it's worked. You know, you've had Hansen, you've had Deans, you've had, well, not so much with Todd Blackadder, but, you know, you have to understand this mentality. And I just wonder whether that's now coming back to bite them. You know, was Rob Penny genuinely the best candidate, or was he the best candidate because of his association with the region, being a good Canterbury man, being a good Crusaders man? And has that come back to bite them?
The Warriors, we've got to retain the ability to look honestly and critically at this team. And I don't know why, I just get a feeling that might be slipping away now. You know, if you say that, oh, they choked that game, they bottled that game, they lost that game, a game they should have won, already there are those making excuses, and you're getting a lot of social media for, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, oh, they didn't. Mate, any other game, any other team, any other sport, you would say, hey, hang on a second, you got 3 minutes to go, you're up 8 points, you lost it, you blew it. You would, wouldn't you? I hope that we are still allowed, amongst all the euphoria around this side, to be able to talk about this team without getting the backlash, because this does happen in New Zealand sport, that all of a sudden they're a sacred cow, and I don't want them to be.
No, we've got to continue to put the pressure on them. We've got to continue to ask the hard questions. And therefore that does put a level of accountability. Look, I'll say this, at this level, there's only one currency, and that's winning. The alternative is losing. Feel good's great. Now, it's interesting because of their own terrible history in regards to performance in the NRL, that almost artificially created such a buzz last year, because finally they did do well. So their own failings actually led to this incredible fandom, because they suddenly weren't disappointing. And so I think there's probably a little bit of a leeway at the moment based on the results, based on the performance the team did last year. There's probably a little bit of a get out of jail maybe through the first 3 games. You know, they're away to Canberra this weekend. They could very well start the season 0-3.
It's in Christchurch though, that game, so it's kind of an away game, but it's kind of a home game. Yeah.
But you still got to come up against Canberra 0-3, isn't it? So yeah, I mean, you know, like I say, I'll be honest, I'm still not convinced Shaun Johnson. I think Shaun Johnson had a stunning season last year, but man, he's been pretty damn ordinary for the decade prior to that, and I still wonder, you know, whether he can back up last season, this season. You know, clearly had a very, very good second half for the Warriors. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I don't think anybody should be a sacred cow. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, as I said, it's about winning. It's about results. We've got to ask the hard questions, and, you know, and no one should be humiliated or challenged by asking the hard questions too. And it's not a simple case of, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, you know, I always say that to people. Well, why do you vote for a government? Why do you vote in the election? You've never been a member of parliament. You don't know what you're talking about. I mean, it's a ridiculous argument. But yeah, I think, look, as long as it's asking the questions in the right way, in the right manner, should we write them off just yet? No, we shouldn't. But yeah, I mean,
They need to win this game. They got to win this game this weekend.
They need to win this one. They need to show they can win, and they need to get back on the horse, and they need to start winning. Because we always talk about the importance of the end of the season, but why is the start of the season so different than the end of the season? I mean, you score a try in the first 2 minutes of a Test match, and it's considered a great moment. Yeah, team scores a try in the last 2 minutes of a Test match, and it's like, oh yeah, but they scored towards the end. I've never understood that mentality.
Apologise to me!